Welcome back to the garage. We are back on the buggy today. Last episode, I was getting the last of the big wiring projects sorted out. So that was the rock lights. Now what I'm going to start on today is just tidying up the wires and across the whole buggy and getting zip tied, just getting everything nice and clean in prep for putting the body panels on, because once I put the body panels on, it's going to cover a lot of that stuff up and I won't be able to get back to it as easily. So that's what we'll start working on today. I'm also going to put the coolant reservoir on. I had to paint the bracket for that, but now that is ready to put on. All right, I got my bracket painted for the coolant reservoir, so I'll install that now. This is another bracket that I've made from scratch. You find yourself having to make a lot of stuff from scratch in these custom projects. So there it is, snugged up on there. It installs with just 2 screws into threaded holes, which I'll show you when I walk around there. But I thought I'd show you this. This is a tool. Some of the powder coat is in on those threads. They're mostly protected, but it's just a little tiny bit like in there at the back of it. So I don't know if you've seen one of these tools before, but this is a thread chaser. It's designed for just what it sounds, chasing threads. So pretty handy little tool to have. I have a whole set of them. They're handy for just cleaning up threads. It's not exactly like a tap. I've found that they seem to have a little bit more tolerance than a tap does. So sometimes you need, these things aren't enough and you need an actual tap because the bolt tolerances oftentimes are a little bit tighter than this thing is even. Change plans. I ended up not working on the wiring today. I did get the coolant reservoir in, but the reason why I didn't do the wiring, do the cleaning up of the wiring, the zip ties and stuff, is because I'm waiting on some higher quality, I forgot about this, I'm waiting on some higher quality zip ties to come in the mail. These are special zip ties with rubber lining, which is going to be much better for wires, and they're reusable. You can take them off. Anyway, I'll show you those when I get them. But was able to get the brake master cylinder in and bench bled. So this short little hose is convenient for that. This actually is part of the rear part of the brake system. But since it's so short, you can just run it right back into the reservoir and bench bleed. So I got that. And I was able to get the front brake lines in. So you see right there is the T. And then comes out to down here. And then this dangling one here is just, it runs along the upper link and then connects right there. So it comes up the top link and then comes into the master cylinder right there. There's a T for the front and the rear brakes. So that's just not plugged in yet. I didn't tighten that one down yet, just because I don't feel like dealing with pulling that cap off and having it leak a little bit, but I'm getting towards the end of my day. So probably work on that tomorrow and work on running the rear brake lines tomorrow. It makes sense that I do that now too, because the next logical step after button up the wiring was going to be putting panels on, but I want to run these brake lines before that point too. So take care of that now, and while I'm waiting for those zip ties to come in the mail. All right, it's the next morning. Yesterday, got a few things done with the brakes, so I think we'll continue working on that today. You see the brake calipers are sitting there. I have to put these brake calipers back on the rear. The fronts already have the calipers on there. So yesterday I was getting the brake lines for the front all sorted out. So now we'll start working on the rear. Yesterday I painted these brackets. The front calipers were already on, so when I sprayed the knuckle, I just sprayed them all. Since these calipers were off the buggy, I went ahead and sprayed these separately, and then we'll put the brake calipers back together with these brackets on there, and then get the wheels off and get the calipers installed in prep for running the rear brake lines. So I think that's what we'll work on today. Obviously these are the bolts that bolt it to the knuckle, but so I'm just putting them on here to keep everything together. That's a tip that I picked up at some point. It's like when you take a bolt off, especially if you're like blowing apart like a whole suspension or knuckles or whatever, when you take bolts off, put them back where they go, and then when you put everything back together, you won't have to remember which bolt is for what. Yeah, these are 5/8 18 bolts. I just looked up the torque spec. Dry, the torque spec dry is 240 foot-pounds. So I don't have to worry. There's no way to I don't think that impact will over torque them. finishing out for the day. Got the calipers installed in the back and the brake lines ran. See the fitting there. And the other line goes there to the other installed brake caliper there. And then the line will follow the upper link and come out right up here. Get fed into there. Obviously, I'm going to clean all this up later. Probably after I get the seat in so I can figure out where things are going to go. And then it feeds up through the center area. It's soft lines all the way through. Out here. I just have this draped right here right now. On the panel, there's no way I can get the camera in there. You'll see it later when I install the floor panels, but there's a hole in the upper part of the floor plan. It's more like where the firewall is on a traditional vehicle. I'm gonna have a little ball valve, a little ball valve here. Focus. A little ball valve that is used as like a parking brake of sorts. So I'll be able to, it's not really a cutting brake because, it's not like a lever actuated thing, but I can basically step on the brake pedal, turn that ball valve, and then have braking force that will hold the vehicle so I don't have to lean on the transmission. I figured that was be a nice feature to have in case I have to stop somewhere on like a hill. I don't want to put all that force on the parking paw in the transmission. So that ends up kind of down in there. And then this is the line that connects to that valve, and then the other side of it is here. And then the front line, I didn't run the front line yet. It's just on the floor there right now. But the front line comes up the upper link, will come up here to right there. So that'll be the brake system. These are soft brake lines the whole way. I wanted to do soft brake lines instead of hard brake lines just because of how custom the setup is. And these are made by a company called Crown Performance. DOT approved. Label's upside down, but I can't turn the camera the other way. So that's pretty cool. Heard about them on an episode of Four Wheeler once, where I think Ian in that episode was building a buggy also. He used soft lines the whole way for that. So I figured I'd give that a shot. So that'll be it for today. Tomorrow I'll probably just finish that part up. You probably saw here, that's just temporary, that zip tie there. As I kind of mentioned before, for a lot of the wiring, I'm waiting on some higher quality zip ties to come in the mail. So once I get that, I'll show you those. Those are made by a company called Grip Lock Ties, which I'll talk more about. Once I get them, I'll show them to you and stuff. All right, that'll do it for today. It's morning. We got the rear brake lines installed yesterday. I'm almost done with the brakes already, which is going faster than I thought. Probably get the front line hooked up right there, get that routed. I'll have to put a little bit more brake fluid in there because it's gonna leak, and I don't want to. The master cylinder's been bench bled, so I don't want to introduce air during that process. But here's the other thing we got going today. I'm still waiting on those better zip ties to come in the mail, but I did get some heat tape today. With this, I can install this on the passenger side underneath the passenger side panel where all the electronics are. I also have, these are stainless steel zip ties for this stuff, if I choose to use it. This is header wrap. I was thinking about using header wrap on the muffler portion that's right underneath the seat, just as another barrier of trying to reflect heat and prevent it from radiating up into the seat area and the panels. But I think I'm gonna probably hold off on actually using that until I've determined that I actually need it. I may put some on the headers where the header gets really close to the powder coat, just to kind of prevent the powder coat from melting in that area. And or there's one spot on the header where some wires sneak behind the header. I may wrap it's kind of right by the collector. I may put some heat wrap on it in that area to protect those wires. The wires already have heat protective shield sleeve, but that might be a little extra protection against heat. Just put a little bit more in there. When I take this cap off, it's gonna leak a little, and I don't want that to pull air. The little cylinder is purged of air. I bench bled this. Oh, it might not drain because it's basically vapor locked. Oh yeah, I was way overthinking this. It's leaking a little bit though. Not vapor locked, but you get what I'm saying. It's like hydraulic basically. All right, before I go tight on that, it's basically gonna route something like that. Again, since I'm waiting on those better zip ties, I'll secure that more properly when I get them in. They should be coming next week. Uh-oh, we got leaks. Uh-oh. At the front axle. Forgot to tighten these. Wait. Must not get air in system. I'll show you what I was doing. It's just leaking here at the fitting. I forgot to tighten all of these up, so it's just pouring out. Make sure you hurry up and wipe any brake fluid off of any painted surfaces. Brake fluid tends to be pretty corrosive, so it'll just eat the paint. So that's the finished product. Came out pretty good, I think. For as jank as that was, basically installing it with all the rest of this stuff in the way, I'm pretty happy with that result. So that's just some additional heat reflective tape. Again, when we ran the motor, it wasn't even getting hot, this floor pan, but I figure it's not gonna hurt to add this reflective tape and, you know, take some more heat out of this. I may, at some point, wrap this whole section, muffler section in here that's under the floor pan with header tape too. That'd be an additional layer. One last thing for today I figured I'd do while I'm thinking about it is get the rear steer log hooked up. I'll show you how this kind of works when I get it hooked up. Got the old super extension. These were not very tight, obviously, because I knew they were coming back off. Put the rear steer on, so. Before I jack those down, get the rest of this hooked up first. You can't see under here, but these bolts, these are the bottom side of the caps that hold on the steering ram. These are socket head cap screws with Allen heads on the bottom. Of course, I already Loctited these, so not thinking about it. I got that installed. I figured I'd show you how this works. This whole apparatus here is for the self-centering rear steer. This is a kit that you can buy from Busted Knuckle Off-Road. All the brackets I made, you know, that is obviously a custom installation, so all the bracketry here that you see are made by me, but everything else, the cable, the shuttle, and the log are all in the kit. So right here you have, this is a tube. It's a machined tube, hollow on the inside. Inside this tube, there's a solid rod that sits in between these two sensors and can shuttle back and forth. And that solid rod is a machined close fit to the inner diameter of this tube. So it sleeves in there and it just barely fits. It's a very close fit. These two sensors are essentially just switches. They have a ball bearing that's spring loaded, and the spring pushes the ball bearing against a ring in there. When the spring is pushing the ball bearing, I can't remember if it closes the switch or it opens the switch, but one or the other. And then when something pushes on the ball bearing and lifts it off of the seat, then it does the opposite. It opens the switch or closes the switch. I can't remember which. But so when you're straight, the shuttle in here sits between these two sensors. And this shuttle inside here is connected via cable out to this little heim joint that connects to this bracket. And it basically sources information from the steered position of the knuckle. So when this steers one way or the other, you know, the cable will pull this shuttle one way or the other. And you can imagine that, you know, once the shuttle pulls this way, the close tolerance fit will push that ball bearing off the seat and activate this switch. So this switch will be activated, this one won't. And then that will cause the self-centering to steer back the other direction. Once the shuttle repositions itself between, you know, the steering action will reposition the shuttle to between the two sensors again, and it will deactivate the switch, and then it will be back to centered. All right, that'll do it for this one. Making good progress on the Buggy. Got some more stuff done. The brakes are almost done. They're kind of going a little faster than I thought they would. Also got the rear steer log installed, show you how that works. Also got that heat tape installed on the bottom side of the passenger side panel. That's now on both of the panels, so that should reflect a little bit of heat off the mufflers. We'll test that more when, you know, we really put some heat into it driving around. And if it proves to be a problem, then I'll probably header wrap the mufflers in that section too. Upcoming, I got those fancy zip ties in the mail. So stick around, next video I'll show you those and talk all about that company. It's a pretty cool little product. You might be interested in that for your project, for zip tying wires or all sorts of things. They're reusable. So anyway, I'll show you that in the next video. Stick around for that. Thanks for watching.